Who's that coming down the track? Who's that coming down the track? It's a mean machine in red and black. Mean machine in red and black. Ain't nothing finer in the land. Ain't nothing finer in the land. Than the drunk obnoxious Georgia band. Than drunk obnoxious Georgia band. Go, go! Go, go!
What's up, y'all? This is John and Kaleb back for another episode of the Nothing Finer podcast. As always, you can find us on Millions and as a part of the Fans First Sports Network. Tonight, we are breaking down all of the conference title games and playoff implications that are happening sometime between Friday evening and Saturday evening. But before we get to that, how you been? What are you drinking?
I've been all right. We had my daughter's little school put on a little Christmas performance tonight. And at the end of it, they showed a video where they asked the kids a bunch of questions. And one of them asked, "Where was Jesus born?" And the first kid responded, "Good old Rocky Top," which I disliked the Tennessee reference, but I was like, hell yeah, brother. College football rules the world. But I am drinking some kombucha, which is growing on me slowly but surely. What about you?
It's been. Y'all know I don't like the cold. It's been fairly chilly in Savannah recently. Yesterday I woke up, it was 33 degrees. That was pretty awful. Um, but I have some caffeine-free Diet Coke because I have to work in the morning. It's one of those things where one of my guys is working and needs some help, so I'm going to help. Um, but you know, can't get too messed up when I've got to be at work at 8 a.m. and go do radio stuff at 11 and, have all that shit going on.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
It sucks to be an adult. This is stupid. Who made me do it?
Yeah, adulting is the worst. I agree.
You know,
Wish I could be 17.
two people claimed to love each other in the 90s, and now I have to pay bills. Those two people aren't even married to each other anymore. This is stupid.
Yeah. Have the same old issue, and it's a problem.
You know what? While we're talking about the same old issue and problems, let's talk about the ACC. Um, because
A very, very good segue.
I mean, man, we got Clemson versus SMU in Charlotte. Should be a home game for Clemson. Um, but who knows? SMU is one of the wealthiest, per person universities in the country. SMU 2.5 point favorites going into this one, over under 55.5. SMU has lost a single game this season to BYU. Clemson has lost to Georgia, Louisville, and South Carolina. So basically, what I'm understanding, Clemson is the third or fourth best team in the SEC East.
Still might be good enough for the ACC, though. Oh my gosh, I forgot. I put on the Thursday night football game. I forgot about the dumb kickoff rules. Sorry.
Every time I see a kickoff in the NFL, I get sad.
Yeah, it's anyway. It worked for the XFL gimmicky stuff, but the NFL, I don't like
Yeah,
it.
that's
But
because in the XFL, they were trying to kill people.
yeah,
And it didn't matter if it was 9 yards deep in the end zone, they were taking it out. In the NFL, they're like, the kicker kicks it deep because he's like, oh no, they get to the 30. And the runner's like, if I just don't catch it, I still get to the 30.
right. Why would I even try?
There's no benefit to effort on the kickoffs in the NFL.
Yeah.
It's kind of how Clemson was against most decent teams they played this year. Clemson has had such an odd season this year, and with how up and down they are, I'm going to do a head-to-head comparison on how they played against Louisville. Common opponent,
Fair
the
enough.
best team that they both played. When SMU went into Louisville, they won the game 34-27, had 291 passing yards, 190 rushing yards, 481 total yards. They allowed 329 passing yards, 132 rushing yards for 461 total yards. The Mustangs also got an interception and had 0 turnovers on the day. When Clemson went into Louisville, or when Clemson lost to Louisville in Clemson, first home loss since 2017 Syracuse, they lost 33-21, had 228 passing yards, 222 rushing yards for 450 total yards. They allowed 156 passing yards, 210 rushing yards for 366 total yards.
Mm.
So they won the yardage battle by 84 yards and still lost the game by 12 points. Weird one there. Clemson does lead the ACC in turnover margin, while SMU is 8th in the ACC alone. But Clemson has struggled with true dual threat quarterbacks, that all of them that they've played this season, and all the true dual threat quarterbacks they've played this season is just Lenore Sellers.
It's a small sample size, but still worth looking at.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many people in the country are quite on Lenore Sellers' level as far as his ability to break tackles, but he did have 330 total yards in that game. They gave up 6.3 yards per carry to Carson Beck. The issue they're going to have with SMU is quarterback Kevin Jennings, 2,746 passing yards, and he did not start until after the BYU game. He played a little bit, but his first start was week 5 of the season, has 2,746 passing yards. Yeah, that the most attempts he had in a game before BYU was 12. And still ended the season with almost 3,000 yards. He also has 344 rushing yards in 83 attempts, so 4.1 yards per carry.
He became my starting fantasy quarterback when Carson Beck was pissing me off. So I know this dude is good.
So from weeks 3 to week 10? 10 or 11?
It took me till week 7, and yeah, I put Carson Beck back in, I think, for the UMass game. I may have had Tennessee week, because Tennessee week SMU had a bye. So I think that's when I put him in.
Solid choice. Yeah.
Yeah, it worked out.
Did you end up winning the league?
No, I got knocked out in the first round of the playoff.
Who? Oh, it was the Frog Doctor that won the
Yeah,
league.
that's right. It was. Congratulations. Shout out to Dr. Frog, by the way.
We'll have to see if he wants to come on and do some bowl game picks at some point.
Oh, yeah. Do some Bowl Mania.
Yeah. The Mustangs, SMU, also have 10 guys with double-digit receptions on the season, which some of those guys only have 10, but to have 10 different guys with at least 10 receptions means they're spreading the ball out. They're not just a one running back, one tight end, one wide receiver type of team. I will say that Clemson is 5th in the 247 Talent Composite, and that the 247 Talent Composite, if you're not familiar, quantifies talent level on the team through recruiting and development. SMU is 25th in that metric, but Clemson lost to teams ranked 2nd in Georgia, 21st in South Carolina, and 36th in Louisville. And just to give you guys an indication on how much the 247 Talent Composite doesn't predict victories.
Yeah.
5-7 Kentucky, 24th. 5-7 UCLA, 29th. And 2-10 Mississippi State is 39th.
Now, they do have former President Michael Van Buren, but
it's fair. It's very fair.
Still probably not performing up to what 247 thinks they could have.
Apparently, executive orders were not enough for a third win. But SMU has a multiple threat offense, and after seeing what South Carolina did to Clemson, I'm not really sure we can completely trust the Clemson coaches to put their team in the best position to win, and that's between preparation, play calling, and most importantly, personnel. And I say that because South Carolina did not move the ball with Sammy Brown on the field.
Hmm.
They just didn't. One of the most electric true freshman defensive players in the country, and in my opinion, that's a very short list. KJ Bolden, Sammy Brown, and a few other guys. Um, and what did Clemson do in the fourth quarter? They didn't play him.
Yep.
And that's kind of where my trust issues come with this
Fair.
game. I really think SMU wins this one. I want to say SMU covers because I think it'll be a 27-24, 31-28 type of game. But, I just, man, Clemson has shown to me that anytime they have an opportunity to prove something, they prove that they're not good enough to prove it.
That's fair. For the record, Mike agrees too. It looks like he says SMU wins because they're a Methodist university, and I imagine Clemson being a non-denominational megachurch that uses NIL money on private jets for Dabo. Nothing more Atlantic Coast than Dallas, Texas, he says. Pony Express to the playoff with a first round bye. How many references to Texas and mainstream Protestant religions can you throw in there?
I bet if we challenged him, he could do a few more.
Probably
Um,
could.
but to be clear, and I'm pretty sure Mike feels the same way, we would prefer Clemson winning, so Bama's sitting at home.
Yeah, yeah.
I
And
just
it's
don't trust them.
that's fair. And I like Methodists, you know. I'm as a former Methodist myself who didn't leave for horrible reasons. I'm good with the John Wesleys and all that. Yeah, this one's hard for me to pick because this week I have an irrational hatred of all things Texas, but I also have an irrational hatred all the time of all things orange.
Oh, so you're very split.
Yeah, I'm really conflicted for sure. But I think Clemson wants this one. I know Dabo wants this one. And dare I say Texas, I mean SMU is the Texas of the ACC. Dare I say it? I mean, there's not a whole lot of good teams to pick from in the ACC, but they
That's
have
fair.
been on the receiving end of a very easy schedule. You know, their one loss is admittedly at home to a pretty good BYU team, but the best team that they played in the ACC is Louisville. There's several teams better than Louisville in there. Apparently, Clemson isn't one of them because they lost to them, but still worth noting. Clemson's at least battle tested, in my opinion. Granted, they're primarily battle tested by SEC teams and lost both of those games in relatively embarrassing fashion, although embarrassing for different reasons. But they've at least been through some tough physical games, and that matters, especially the way this Clemson team plays football. But we've seen that matter throughout college football this season. So, as much as I agree with you that we can't necessarily trust them to rise to these moments, when it has come to the ACC championship the last few years, if they've had an opportunity, they've done what they can to make it happen. So give me Clemson, but I mean I think Alabama gets in over SMU either way if
Boo.
Clemson does win. I don't like it, but the committee, whoever was speaking for them this past week, was directly asked, okay, what happens if Clemson beats SMU? And they were just like, well, we'll see, which just sounds a lot like Bama's getting in this whether you like it or not.
Yeah, and throwing some shade at Emmanuel Ward here.
Oh, he
Uh,
deserves it, so throw as much as you want.
yeah, the fact that he said teams that aren't playing in their conference title games aren't giving us any extra data points to look at. Well, the data point is they didn't get there.
Yeah, they didn't earn the right to compete for their conference.
I
That's the
think, you know, potentially a hot take here. I think if you are in the top 10 going into your conference title game, unless you get blown out, you need to be in the top 12.
yeah. I have to agree with that. If you're
Now,
competing, especially if you're one of those competing for a first round bye spot, and
right.
you got to now. Arizona State, Iowa State, we're about to talk about. Neither of those teams is currently in the top 12,
Exactly.
and leave it to the Packers to throw an interception on 3rd and goal, by the way.
It was
But
it was pass interference in the end zone.
okay, I just saw the guy catch the ball, but yeah, you're probably right. They did throw the flag.
Oh,
Anyway,
it was blatant not what they were calling in Georgia versus Georgia Tech. Like this was blatant. He was getting tackled before the ball was even thrown, kind of situation.
gotcha. But yeah, I agree with you. Both teams should get in um, when they're in the top 12 already. But you know how much the committee loves ratings and loves big brands, and they already shunted one deserving team for Alabama last year. So
And I'm really not saying that top 12 because I think if you're ranked 12th and lose by 2 possessions, sucks to suck. Should have done better,
yeah,
right?
you knew what you had to do to get in, and you didn't do it.
But
Fair enough.
SMU to have lost one game in a power conference, whether they are a weak power conference or not, I don't really think that matters a whole lot because SMU went outside of their conference to play against other core four teams.
Yeah, that are the teams that are near the top of those core four conferences, by the way.
Right. And for me, unless SMU gets blown out like 42 to nothing, how are you going to put a 9-3 Alabama team who lost by 3 possessions to a 6-6 Oklahoma team, lost to a 6-6 Vanderbilt team, over a team that went 11-1? Their one loss was to a what 10-win BYU team.
Yeah,
That's their one loss in the
yeah.
regular season.
Alabama can only hang on to that Georgia win for so long.
And how many bad losses does that win overtake?
Right. Apparently, all of them, according to the committee right now.
Because I can understand the Vanderbilt loss, like the
Yeah,
week after you beat Georgia in an emotional home win. I get it. You messed up. Nobody on
it
the team
happens.
played well. Okay, cool. And then you go to Norman when you have a chance to clinch a spot in the SEC title game and you score 3 points.
That's inexcusable. That is,
It really is.
you're just not good. You're not, if you're doing that, you're not good enough to be in the playoff. Now, I don't care how many times you get one good game and beat Georgia.
Yep. I don't understand it.
Hmm.
To me, Alabama does not deserve to be in the playoff over a team like SMU that their second loss would be in their conference title game.
Yeah.
All
Speaking
right.
of things in Dallas,
And things that don't deserve a spot in the playoff, the Big 12. So we got Arizona State versus Iowa State in Dallas, aka the Ronald McDonald Bowl. And that's just based on their colors, guys. I know that both of the coaches can be clowns at times. I get it. That's not where the reference is.
oh, it is now, but
Double entendre, if you want it to be, is not the intent. Um, but just like we all expected this season, Arizona State and Iowa State playing for the
yeah,
Big 12 title game.
just like we all predicted.
I will say Arizona, the word, was in my prediction.
Fair.
And the team playing Arizona also wears red.
Close enough,
So, like,
honestly.
I'm going to give myself 15% correct.
Yeah.
Just
I I think I picked the same game that you did. I know I wasn't doing it for the pod, but just in my own personal predictions. I think I picked the same two teams to go in, and so I'm going to take the same percentage of correctness about this game.
perfect. Perfect. Yeah, with the Utah thing, I don't think anybody expected Cam Rising to get hurt and try to play a
In
28
hindsight,
season.
we probably should have. That's
Well,
just how this has been going his whole career.
honestly, it at this point, I was really thinking so many body parts of his have been surgically repaired.
What else is there? He's a
Right, like
Terminator.
yeah, he is the Terminator. What else could go wrong? Apparently, he had one more,
Yeah. What do you know?
at least one. Um, but to be honest, I think this game is or the one thing this game comes down to is Iowa State's ability to contain the Sun Devil run game.
Mm-hmm.
The Cyclones are allowing 173.7 yards per game on the ground, um, which, to be clear, guys, that's terrible.
Yeah,
That's real bad.
that's really bad.
And for Iowa State to overcome that, they'll need to make this game a shootout. They'll need
Mm-hmm.
to score quickly, which is going to put more stress on their defense. But for the shootout to happen, they've got to have explosive plays on offense. They are 13th in the country in yards per completion at 13.23. So that is, I mean, that is very good.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm going to put it on you and Mike to convince me that Iowa State is able to win this game.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it on Mike because I think Arizona State wins. I think Scatabo is gonna help the Sun Devils shorten the game because they have that not great rush defense. Iowa State's offense, I will say, is explosive enough to keep it close. I think they hang around in the game because they don't need long possessions, but I do think the Sun Devils will control the clock enough to get the win. Mike, on the other hand, does think Iowa State wins, but has no stats to back it up. What the Arizona State coaching
He's just all
staff,
twisted up there.
yeah, what the Arizona State coaching staff was able to do after the mess Herm Edwards created is nothing short of a miracle. But Matt Campbell will complete his one magical season that he has once every 3 years with a trip to the playoff. And you know what? That's a fair point.
Uh,
But
Iowa State, if you guys haven't heard this stat, this is the first double-digit win season Iowa State has ever had in the
ever,
history of their program.
there's only one left that hasn't had at least a 9-win season, right? Or more than a 9-win season. That's that's our good friends in Nashville, the Vanderbilt Commodores.
I was about to say, I think so, because it was Iowa State and somebody else, and I couldn't remember.
Yeah, I think it was
I
Vanderbilt, but I think that was just among core four.
You're probably correct. I did forget to put the spread and over under, so I'm going to say that now. Um, Arizona State -2 is the spread. Over
Hmm.
under 49.5. The money line on this, if you take Iowa State, is even, which is very interesting.
That is interesting. Hmm. Now, a question is posed here by Mike. He asks, if Iowa State does win this game, do you think Matt Campbell would finally take a job somewhere else, even if his team makes the playoff?
Honestly, I really need to go, and this is going to sound crazy. I understand that. I need to go watch his preseason press conference and see the look in his eyes.
Fair enough.
Because with enough crazy in his eyes, he stays at Iowa State. Because we just talked about it. They're historically mid at best as a program. But if there's not enough crazy there, UNC and UCF have been floated as
Yeah,
potential other opportunities for him. And I think both of those schools are going to recruit better. Both of those schools have better NIL opportunities. And I
they're both
think,
in better locations just for recruiting.
yeah, I think honestly he'd be dumb not to take one of those two jobs.
Yeah, I have to agree. But there have been other positions his name's been floated for that he would have been dumb not to leave Iowa State for that he hasn't. So
That's fair. Is he dumb or is he crazy? People are asking.
I guess we'll never
Obviously
know.
not dumb to finally get this team to 10 wins.
Right. All it took was Texas and Oklahoma not being there. I say that though, Iowa State has ruined a fair few of both of their seasons while they were in the Big 12.
Yes, they have in 8 and 4 seasons. They have
Yeah,
ruined some Texas and Oklahoma seasons.
that's right.
All right. Speaking of ruined seasons, it's going to ruin all of our seasons for
Watching the Big Ten play football.
Nope, just specifically watching Penn State play
Yeah.
Oregon. This game's in Indianapolis. Oregon somehow only a 3-point favorite.
Oh,
I don't get it.
yeah.
Over under 49.5. When I was working on the outline today, I thought I was forgetting something. I completely forgot to put notes into this game. So,
Something tells me you won't need much. But
so there's two ways this game goes, in my opinion. Oregon comes out playing like Oregon, and this game is not close. Or Oregon comes out like they did against the Idaho Vandals or Wisconsin or Boise State for that matter, even though I think Boise State's better than Penn State. Um, and then make it a close game, potentially lose. But have any of us seen anything from this Penn State team to truly believe that they have what it takes to beat the true number one team in the country right now? I don't think we have.
I haven't seen anything from them in the last 30 years that tells me they
Whoa,
could
whoa,
win
whoa,
a game like.
whoa. That 2016 team was one of the most fun teams in college football.
Fun, sure, but like as always, I guess they got the furthest, but as always, there's hurdles you don't get over when you're at Penn State, and that's just a fact.
In 2016, they should have made the playoff over Ohio State.
Fair.
You beat Ohio State and still get left out of the playoff under them. I don't understand. But no, I think Oregon wins this game. I don't really at this point, Penn State has to win a national title with playing good teams for me to be able to trust them whatsoever.
Yeah. And for Mike's part, he agrees. He thinks Oregon wins big because James Franklin can't be trusted against good teams. But he does say he could see Penn State winning a fluky game, what with the 2007 nature of the season, and Oregon getting bumped to the 5 seed, creating chaos, which he thinks he's here for, he says. But he thinks Penn State covers or pushes in this game, but he's not going to say with his chest that Penn State is winning outright.
Ooh,
And
covering three.
that's a wild game.
Well, we know Mike is actually a Big Ten fan at heart. He's not a
That's
Georgia
true.
fan.
That is true. He's a
It's all
Michigan man
jokes, guys.
first. Yeah, we love you, Mike.
He's a good Michigan man, which means he
Yes.
loves cheating.
Oh, but yeah, I can't fight this nagging feeling. Something in my gut is telling me that we will not have an undefeated team make the playoff, which would mean Penn State wins this game. And my gut has been pretty good at picking games lately. But like, it's Penn State in a big game, isn't it?
It is.
So I've got to stick to my principle that I will not trust Penn State to win a big game until they do. So yeah, give me the Ducks.
And if the AP poll, coaches poll, and college football poll decided to listen to me,
They, we all know
and do what?
We all know Ward listens to this show on a regular basis.
And if that's the case, fuck you, dude.
Yeah, fair.
But if they listened to me, Penn State would start every season somewhere between 12 and 15 and only move up when
They
almost
beat
every
Ohio
other
State.
team has two losses or they win a big game.
Yeah.
Because we've seen this almost every single year. With the exception of 2016 where they won the conference but still lost two games.
Lost to Ohio State as always.
No, they beat Ohio State that year.
Oh, did they beat Ohio? Oh, that's right. You're right. They just lost 2 games, keeping them out of the.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't. At some point, you have to call a spade a spade. And Penn State is one of the best teams every year that should not be in the play.
Yeah.
And I'm honestly tired of watching them get hyped up just to get their throats kicked in and be crawling around on the floor gasping for air because James Franklin is still their coach.
Yeah.
And
I don't.
I guess Penn State fans are just happy with mediocrity, because James Franklin is a. Imagine if Mark Richt was a person of color and used cuss words.
Yeah. Like,
That's who he is.
think about it though. Like, y'all, Penn State, 1982 Sugar Bowl, sitting there keeping Georgia
They're
from winning
still
a
running
national.
the same
Yeah.
offense.
Yeah, but like, Y'all used to have pride. Y'all used to fight for things that mattered. And now you can't even get there. I guess they'll be there this year. They'll be in the playoff regardless, but
Penn State is one of those teams where I think, unless there's a couple teams that have the potential to get into the playoff this year that I think would lose to Penn State even in Happy Valley. But pretty much every team that should make the playoff should
mhm.
not be afraid of Penn State, even in Happy Valley, even at night, even in a whiteout. Like
Yep.
I don't think it matters. Like Penn
I don't care
State's
how
just
loud they're
not
playing Mo
good.
Bamba on third down. Like it's just
You have to be good enough to make a stop. And
yeah.
they
When
just
you've got dudes on dudes, Penn State does not have the dudes.
let's put it like this: a 6-6 Michigan team beat this Penn State team that could not get a single yard on 4 tries at the goal line.
Yeah.
The worst Michigan team of the last decade did better than this
Yeah.
Penn State team.
You know what? You know what, playoff committee? I will let you put Alabama in this playoff if Penn State drops out. I will let you do it. I won't even be mad.
I won't. I'm not going to allow it.
Fair enough.
Give me Penn State playing Clemson in Happy Valley.
And then going into whatever our semifinal game is, the winner
Yeah,
of that
like
game. Yeah.
the two most beatable teams in the playoff. Oh no.
How terrible. Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Inject that in my veins right now.
Um Speaking of something else everyone should want injected in their veins. I think this is potentially going to be one of the better conference championship games of the weekend. And we're
Oh
talking
yeah.
about the Mountain West. We've got UNLV versus Boise in Boise because the Mountain West decided, you
Home
know,
games, baby.
yeah, home games for the conference championship. Boise 4-point favorite over under 57.5. And we've seen this one already this season, and you'll hear just a minute about my in-season rematch stat. In the first matchup, UNLV took a 10-3 lead into the second quarter. They then took the lead again going into the fourth quarter, 24-23. This game was one of the games this season that Boise was able to kind of stop the passing attack, only giving up 179 yards compared to their average yards allowed of 258.2. For reference, that is quite literally on 100 and it's like 118th in the country.
Ooh.
Yeah. Um, UNLV was able to slow down Ashton Genty, though, holding him to his lowest yards per carry through the entire season, including the Oregon game with 3.9 yards per carry that day. Um, and the thing about UNLV is they're consistently good when it comes to stopping the run.
Mm-hmm.
This could be a wild game for the playoff seeding because the committee has made it clear that they do not respect Boise like we all think they should.
Yeah.
Um, this is concerning because, in all honesty, UNLV is top to bottom the better team. The one area that Boise is better than UNLV is the passing game. Maddox Madsen, who has not started or who has started every game this year but has not played all snaps in every game, has 2,556 yards. He's at 61.7% completion with 7.7 yards per attempt. But that's really their only spot that they are better than UNLV. UNLV has more total rushing yards at 3,049. That is with Ashton Genty as Boise State's running back. They're also better at stopping the run. They are 10th in the country compared to 17th at Boise. They're better at stopping the pass, 109th to 118th. They are scoring a few points less per game, with Boise at third with 40.6 and UNLV at seventh with 38.7 points per game. But they are allowing less points per game with 22 even, while Boise is at 51st with 23.17 points per game. UNLV is the better team, but Boise has been special this year. There's really just something about this Boise State team.
Would you say that they're a team of destiny in terms of making the playoff?
I think that they're special. I think there's just something weird about this team. But I think they're going to be wondering why the hell they're not ranked higher when UNLV takes that trophy and the 12
Oh,
seed back to Vegas
oh,
and Boise State's in the Alamo Bowl. And
oh! He gave him the not even the Idaho Potato Bowl.
yeah, I think that to me, consistency and being good throughout the season is a big key, right?
Yeah,
And UNLV, top to bottom, the entire season has been a better team. But so going to another game UNLV has played this season, they took Syracuse to overtime,
mm.
lost by 6 points, 7 points. The same Syracuse that beat the number 6 team in the country by multiple possessions last week. UNLV
Yeah,
took that team to overtime and lost by a single possession. The same team that lost by less than a touchdown against this Boise State team just a few weeks ago, they've just been more consistent throughout the year. But, big caveat here, guys. It also would not shock me for Ashton Genty to go off for 225 yards and then win by 14 plus points.
yeah.
Would
That's
not
the thing
shock
about
me.
inconsistency is sometimes the good side comes out.
Exactly. It would not shock me in any way, shape, or form if Boise State wins this game. I just have to go with the more consistent team.
Yeah. Mike and I seem to have kind of the same thoughts on this. Looking at the notes, I don't really have a dog in this fight. I'm just going with the little bit of information I had, so I didn't do a full statistical breakdown like you did. Good job on that. That was really informative. My information was simple. Boise won the first game in Vegas. This game is in Boise. Just makes sense to me that Boise wins again. Mike basically had the same logic. Adding though, he assumes the weather will be cold and nasty in Boise, and that's great for a team that has Ginty.
It
Uh,
is.
so he's got Boise to cover. I don't know what the spread is, but I'm gonna
4
pick
points.
Boise to win straight up. 4 points. Oh, I don't know about all that, but I'll I'll take Boise straight up.
All right. The game y'all are probably listening to us for. Horns
Get
down.
those horns down.
We got Georgia playing Texas in Atlanta. Texas 2.5 point favorites, over under 49.5.
Vegas thinks we're going 7-5, is
They
what I
do.
heard from that.
Nolan Smith actually called me before we got on here. He said that Brock Bowers called him and told him what he's hearing in Vegas. You know, I don't have connections like that. So,
Yeah.
oddly enough, the team with a better in-season record normally is the home team when it comes to SEC championship games, wears home uniforms. Texas has chosen to wear their away white uniforms. I am assuming it's because they lost in their home uniforms in October in this matchup.
If that's the reason though, then they're even softer than I thought they were. Like if you're superstitious, you're not beating Georgia. Like I get Georgia fans are the superstitious.
Yeah.
But Kirby Smart doesn't give a crap what uniforms they're wearing. They're just gonna go out there and play
Unless you
football.
want those damn black jerseys.
Yeah,
Then go
then
to
screw
hell.
you.
No, I will say in 2021, Georgia wore their home jersey to the SEC championship game, lost that game, and wore away jerseys in the next 2 games, won the national title. I notice Kirby probably did not.
Fair, yeah.
But since the year 2000, there have been 6 in-season rematches in the SEC. The team that lost the first matchup is 3-4 in those rematches, including the 2012 national title game.
Now, does that also, I wanted to ask, does it also include the 2021 national title game? Because it wasn't in the regular season, the first game between
I
Georgia and Bama. Did that count?
I'll be honest, I wrote this on Monday, so I'm not entirely sure.
Okay. I was wondering, you said 6 in-season rematches, but there's 7 games in your record there, 3 and
Then
4.
yes, then
So I'm going to
yes, I
assume
did
you
forget
counted
that.
that in the record, but didn't count that in the numbers. So if that's
Then
the case,
yes,
then 2 of the 3 wins, the 2 that weren't the 2012 national title game, were by Auburn or by Georgia over Auburn in 2017 and Alabama in 2021. So
yes.
just a fun fact: if you're not Georgia, your odds go down significantly. Apparently,
That is what I believe.
is
Once
is
again,
Texas is Texas Georgia? I'm just asking.
um, I don't think so.
No,
I'm
call
pretty
it
good with
and
maps, and I have driven from Savannah to Austin before.
yeah.
Do not recommend it, but if it took me 21 hours to drive from Savannah to another part of Georgia, I'm going to be real upset.
That's disgusting. That's disgusting. Oh, I hate the
Uh,
state of Texas so much. All right, continue.
um, but let's be honest here, y'all. Texas is better in every statistical way. Um, there should be some context about their stats, though.
There's 3 kinds of lies, you know.
What are they?
Lies, damn lies, and statistics. I think that's Mark Twain.
Uh, Smart man, some would say. Texas, 52nd in rushing offense, averaging 175.5 yards per game. Over the last 4 games, that average has gone up 210.75 yards per game. Their opponent's average rushing defense is 58.3, so legit competition, and they have gotten better.
Legit,
Um,
comparatively speaking.
right. Georgia has gotten worse at stopping the run, allowing 191.5 yards per game in their last 4. That does include 8 overtimes last week.
Yeah.
So,
Although I think I did when I saw you had this note, I did check. I think that only added like 30 yards to Georgia Tech's total.
okay. So, does not change it too much, but still changes
Hmm. Yeah.
it. Texas is 17th in passing offense with 274.6 yards per game. Over their last 4, they are averaging 234.25. I will say, if you remove the Florida game from that average, where Florida was playing almost an entirely second and third string team because of injuries at that point, that does drop to 195 yards per game over their last 4.
Mm.
Their opponent's average passing defense is 76.6, so very slightly below average in those last 3 games where the passing numbers dropped. Um, they played the 83rd ranked passing defense,
Mm.
24th ranked passing defense, and 106th ranked passing defense. That's Texas A&M, Kentucky, and Arkansas, respectively. Georgia has allowed an average of 214.5 yards per game passing over their last 4. Once again, that is including 8 overtime.
I'd imagine that's better than at least a couple of those other teams you mentioned for Texas.
Significantly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In scoring offense, Texas is 21st at 34.8 yards per game while playing the 59.6th ranked scoring defense in the country. On defense, Texas is 12th at stopping the run. Their opponents have an average rushing offensive ranking of 68.9. They are first in passing yards allowed, while their opponents' average passing offense ranking is 69 or 79.9. In scoring defense, they are second, playing an average opponent ranking of 60 or 76.9. Meanwhile, Georgia shockingly is 101st in the country in rushing defense.
Rushing
But
offense, you mean?
rushing offense. I apologize.
That beat up running back room probably has a lot to do with that.
Right, missing Branson and Roderick and Trevor for
Yeah.
about half
Most,
of the season.
yeah.
Um,
That hurts.
it does. But Freight Train's back. Branson is expected to be back this week. So I would be shocked if the rushing game is just god awful.
Yeah.
But they have played the 60.25 average ranking rushing defense in the country. We have the 10th best passing offense in the country while playing the 57th ranked passing defense in the country.
I would be
25th.
curious to see what happens to that ranking if we throw out the middle of the season. But that's for a different day, I'm sure.
I would be interested to just go back through and count the yards from every drop
Yeah.
and see where they would be if there was no yards after the catch.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, time for another day. 25th best scoring offense in the country while playing the 51st.6 ranked scoring defense in the country on average. On Georgia's defense, to be completely fair to Georgia, we have probably been too hard on them.
Yeah.
Statistically, at least. You just said there's 3 types of lies. But Georgia's 44th at stopping the run while playing the 58.7th best rushing offenses in the country. 37th at stopping the pass while playing the 46.7 best passing offense in the country. I feel like for how hard we are on the secondary,
That's not bad.
Georgia's played 3 top 10 passing offenses this year.
Yeah.
And
we've given up 40 once? I mean,
once.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. In scoring defense, Georgia's 25th while playing the 51.1 best scoring offenses in the country. All of that to say, even with including Georgia in Texas's strength of schedule and Texas in Georgia's strength of schedule, Georgia has still played a significantly higher level of competition.
Mm-hmm.
And most of Texas, like most of their opponent rankings, were mid to low 70s.
Yeah.
Most of Georgia's were mid 50s. And
that don't act like that's not significant either, guys.
Yeah.
That is a major difference.
Yeah, we're talking 20 different teams that fill in that spot between opponents. And not to mention Texas' schedule this year, they have played 6 of the bottom 7 teams in the SEC, Texas A&M and Georgia.
Yep. And they lost to the best team they played this season by 2 scores.
And if A&M had a better quarterback, they would be able to take advantage of 3 turnovers and a blocked punt.
Yeah.
Statistically, Texas is the better team. On the field, we've seen that Georgia went into Austin, threw 3 interceptions, and still beat that road cone orange. I am talking about the spray tans and the team color there. Georgia is 6-1 in Atlanta under Kirby Smart against teams not named Alabama. What team is Georgia playing on Saturday?
I don't think it's Alabama.
That would be correct.
And I don't think it's that LSU 2019 team either.
Right, the best offense ever assembled in the history of college football.
Yeah.
I don't think it's those guys. So that's right. You guys heard everything I just said. But to hell with Texas and horns all the way down there with them. Give me the dogs.
Let's go. By the way, I think I jumped the gun on Mike's notes a little bit because he also pointed out that against non-Alabama and non-best team in college football histories, they are undefeated in Atlanta as well.
In the SEC championship.
Yeah, in the SEC championship specifically. And other than that, Georgia's getting more healthy, more battle-tested. They need the bye more than Texas does. And just one final point, that them dogs is hell, and that's why he's picking them to win.
Love that.
Maybe Bevo doesn't show up because there's steak on the dinner menu Saturday night, Mike says.
I think the SEC stepped in and said, if UGA didn't go to Austin, Bevo's not going to Atlanta.
Yeah. I mean, last time they were in the room together, Bevo tried to murder UGA. Let's call it what it is. So, fair enough.
There's enough crazy Georgia fans in Atlanta.
They'd want revenge.
Bevo would be some damn T-bones by the end of the night.
Oh, yeah.
He'd try and
mess with UGA.
Boom.
Oh yeah, no, we all love Boom. Of course, Boom. Boom's eyes would start glowing red and things would start happening anyway. If you follow my Instagram, you know what I mean. Anyway, first, so I think game day is coming to Atlanta too.
They
Is
are.
that right? Somebody named Timothy Chalamet is making guest picks, which like
Who?
I don't mean to be sexist. I'm sure she's a lovely woman, but I don't understand what some Hollywood actress like how she's gonna understand enough to make these picks. I just
Also, serious question. Why why are they making picks when normally they do a fan or someone that is important to the region that they're going to be in?
yeah, and they just bring this chick in to make whatever pick she's gonna make. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, so, but a lot of the talking points that I have heard out in the media talking about this game has basically boiled down to it's hard to beat a good team twice. You've heard the cliche. Eh,
Statistically, it is not.
Yeah. But let's assume that that is true. Let's assume it is hard to beat a good team twice, right? It's also hard to come back from a 17-point deficit and get out 8 overtimes in the freezing cold.
It's hard
It's pretty hard.
to emphasize that point. It's hard to come down 14 points with 5.5 minutes left in the game and win that game in 8 overtimes.
Yeah. It is also hard to beat the number one team in the country at their place by double digits after throwing in 3 interceptions. I think that's
Very.
pretty hard.
Yep, that
It
would be
is
difficult.
also it's also hard to come out of the toughest schedule in the history of your college football program and still make the SEC championship game and almost certainly the playoff.
Yep.
It is also hard to have to see Josh Heupel once a year and fight the urge to punch him in his stupid face.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Not relevant to this, but I just figured it's worth mentioning.
Orange tea. I'll allow it. We'll allow it.
It is also hard to win a national championship with a former walk-on at quarterback, lose 15 NFL caliber players from that championship team, then come back next year and win it again.
In a more dominant fashion.
Yes,
Yep.
undefeated, beating most of the top teams that you've played by multiple touchdowns, 65 to
Only
7.
the second 15-0 team in the history of college football. But yeah.
Yeah. So don't come at me and tell me that you're going to use it's hard as a reason Georgia won't beat Texas. Kirby Paul Smart lives for hard. Nothing makes him
Hell
happier
yeah.
than when something is hard. Pause.
Hell yeah.
But the real reason I'm confident about this game, you remember when we jumped on this a few weeks ago when we were about to play Texas, and we were both just like, yeah, we're picking Georgia, but we don't feel great about it, right?
Yep.
I am extremely confident this time because every time I try to break down this game and make a prediction based on what I've seen this season, the structure of my sentences tells me a lot. When I think, for example, about Georgia's offense, my sentence always starts with Georgia's offense is gettable if. If Carson Beck turns the ball over, if the offensive line plays under the standard, if the receivers drop too many passes, all of these things are possible, but they're all if statements. Here's the sentence on Texas. The Texas offense is gettable. Period. Full stop. Texas offense has played two good defenses all year and failed to score 20 on either of them. Dogs by 50.
And I will say an important note about this game. Uh, the same Kelvin Banks that lost millions of dollars playing against the University of Georgia. The guy that is, I would say, better than the guy that's his backup. I feel like that's a reasonable statement.
Yeah, fair enough.
He's out of this game.
Mm.
So his backup, that's not as good as he is
And
is going to be trying to cover Jalen Walker and or Michael Williams.
but just to be clear though, the guy who he's backing up, he had a reasonable amount of success keeping those guys out of the pocket, right?
Yeah, it was only they only beat the hell out of both quarterbacks, but yeah,
Oh.
reasonable amount of success.
Oh, yeah. I'm telling you, like I thought I was gonna come in this game so nervous. Once we finished that 8 overtime game, I was sitting here like I'm gonna have to go on this podcast and pick Texas to win. And then the next day, I spent 5 seconds thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? Like, I don't understand Vegas. I don't understand FPI. Like, Georgia could lose this game. Don't get me wrong. It's a losable game. But if Georgia does what Georgia usually does in the big game spotlight, I don't see us having a problem.
And,
And that's
and,
not red and black glasses. That's just me observing what this team does.
and I think a big factor going into this is most of the time when you hear it's difficult to beat a good team twice, that's because the first time the team didn't make mistakes that won the game, right?
Yeah.
Like going back into 2017 when Auburn came into Atlanta, they didn't make mistakes a few weeks before that in Auburn.
Yep.
They just didn't. That was the best that Auburn team could have played in 2017.
Yeah. Tell me, did
Um,
Georgia play its best game against Texas? Its most
absolutely,
flawless game of the year? No, not
absolutely
not
not.
remotely close.
No, not truly not close.
Yeah.
Uh,
I had a point in that too. I didn't want to talk too long, but I had a point like that in here as well. That when you really look at these teams, which one has actually improved significantly since that game?
that would be Georgia.
Yeah.
Texas has statistically gotten worse playing a lower level of competition down the stretch.
Yeah. Again, sometimes if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's the Texas offense.
All right. Um, I really think I only have two bets.
Fair enough. It's not a huge slate this week. I had to fight for my four, so
First one, taking Arizona State to cover 1.5. I
love
just
it.
even in that is the website that I use to gamble when I drive down to Florida because I do not illegally gamble within the state of Georgia. Um, but and the next one, even though it's not the best odds, I'm taking Oregon money line at one minus 179.
Just seems like a an obvious winner. And those
Yeah, I
odds
don't.
seem a little low to me, honestly. I would
Yeah,
think it would get down to minus 200. Mike, I'll go ahead and read his off. He is betting Boise -4. He's taken the full -4. Mainly again because it's going to be in Boise, 34 degrees at kickoff. And
that sounds terrible.
yeah, glad I'm not going to be there. And then whatever the first half team under is for Georgia in this SEC championship game, he's going to take that. Obviously, he didn't look it up. I'm kind of curious now to see what it is.
I might actually be able to look that up. Hold on. Keep going. I'll find it.
Okay, cool. And then the third he has is Army +4 against Tulane. I also almost took this one. Uh, Game is in West Point. No way they get blown out in their first ever conference championship game, and it's going to be in the 20s in West Point. Tulane is used to that. Fair enough. Um, Although to me, the only reason I didn't take that bet is because I don't think Army gives a crap about the American Championship when they've got their most important game of the year the next week.
Oh, they do.
You think they do?
This would be their first. If they win this game, it'll be their first conference title since I believe around World War II.
Fair enough. Although they haven't been in a conference for a lot of that time. But yeah, fair
Exactly.
enough. They get a trophy to put in the case for the first time in a while. I guess that'll motivate you.
I
And
do want to add one mine, kind of a caveat on Mike's bet on Army. Bryson Daly 2+ touchdowns.
yeah,
We saw that Tulane cannot stop the run last week in New Orleans when they let Memphis, and specifically, ooh, if I hadn't started talking about him, Mario Anderson, former South Carolina running back.
hmm.
When they let him run for like 4 miles, I don't know, probably a little bit of exaggeration there. That told me Army and specifically Bryson Daly is getting multiple touchdowns.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. And then his final bet was the Clemson SMU under 55.5. Fair enough, too. It's going to be in the freezing cold. Both teams rarely play in the cold. Makes sense to me. So for me, I also took an under. I took the Big Ten championship under 50.5, which might seem wild to take that under, but I saw an article from a guy this morning named Frank Scaroni, I think his last name is. I think that's how you pronounce that. It's Italian, who cares? Uh, but that article was filled with a bunch of very stupid bets for this weekend, and he bet the over in this game, which is the only reason I'm picking the under.
There you
Uh,
go.
Sometimes you just gotta not listen to sports media, and it'll lead you everywhere. Next one, I like Clemson to cover the 1.5 because I like Clemson to win the game.
Fair.
And then Mountain West Championship. Mike took the under, or was going to take the under. He thinks it's going to be low scoring. I don't know. I think I imagined that based on a different thing. But anyway, I like the over in that one. I think we're going to see some fireworks in this Mountain West Championship game. It's a high over, 58.5, but I'm taking it. And then I don't think this is a real bet anywhere, but if it is, I would take the SEC Championship over 1.5 water bottles thrown on the field by a Texas fan.
The meme that came out last Saturday night, almost as soon as the Texas game was over, that said, "Breaking news: Mercedes-Benz not selling water bottles for the SEC championship game, so Texas fans don't have any ammo."
Yeah.
Top tier. Um,
They're going to go up to Knoxville and ask their friends up there how to sneak mustard bottles in the stadium.
oh, they probably have some golf balls, you know.
Yeah, you use what you got. You use what you got.
I will say I am not finding a team total for the first half, but the first half combined total is 24.
I would probably hit the under there, right? I don't
I,
think Texas is scoring 20 in this whole game, and then Georgia being in the first half who they are.
yeah, that is a good point. Um, do you have anything else before we get out of here? Any message to the committee about how they need to actually watch games?
Yeah, please do. Actually, here's what I want you to do this weekend is you're gonna get to a time. Let me look at the football schedule for Saturday real quick because I
Very few
just had
games
it pulled
overlap.
up. Very few games overlap. So what you're gonna be able to do is when you wake up in the morning on Saturday morning, you'll have just watched whatever the Friday night game is, UNLV Boise State and Tulane Army. You get to those two overlap, but who cares? Because only one of those is probably going to have an impact on the playoff.
Yeah, it's 2024. Get some YouTube TV, split screen that thing. You'll be fine.
Yeah, there we
Or
go.
instead of watching Timothy Chardonnay or whatever on
Whatever her name
college
is.
game day, record one game and watch it on Sunday morning.
Here's what I'd actually suggest you do at that time, though. Instead of watching that, watch the Alabama versus Oklahoma football game that morning instead of
Yep.
college game day. Watch it all the way through. Don't watch the Wheels highlights on YouTube. Watch the entire game. You could
Well,
find
you
it
could
somewhere.
also watch the Wheels highlights because it's only going to be Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Yeah, that's true. Just, really get acquainted with that before you start watching Saturday's games. And then when Clemson beats SMU, just keep that game in the back of your mind as you're setting these things up. Because I don't want to live in a world where a team that gets blistered by a team that needed that win to get to a bowl game to have a chance to become the national champion. And I don't think they would win if they got in. I don't think they would advance particularly far if they got in. But there will be a lot of people around the Miami area or around the Oxford, Mississippi area, or around the Columbia, South Carolina area who might just have to take a trip to Ann Arbor and bust down the doors of your AD's office. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, yeah. It's man, Jackson Arnold tore apart the Alabama defense, and 15 days later went into the transfer portal.
Wild. And Georgia's a potential landing spot. Apparently, I don't think he plays it down if he comes, but
I,
it's there.
I think it's one of those things where he's just linked to every team that is a potential contender next season.
Fair enough.
Um, but we have plenty of time coming up soon to get into transfer portal, the signing class that Georgia just had, because there's a lot of actually legitimate big news that came out of that class.
Oh yeah, we
Um,
got to get to that at some point.
yeah, we absolutely will because it significant, one of the best classes Georgia's had in a very long time, specifically in some key positions that we will get to.
Yeah,
Um, but I mean, right now this is a very very important weekend. On Sunday, you know, honestly, if it were not for having hockey tickets at 3 o'clock, we would probably try and record immediately after the playoff selection show.
yeah. Get the instant reaction.
Um, yeah, but I'll just type out losing my mind because I'm going to regardless. I'm very
Yeah,
opinionated if you haven't noticed.
yeah.
And we'll get to it on Sunday night, 8 o'clock, millions. If you want to catch that live stream, but if not, find us YouTube, Spotify, Apple, anywhere you get podcasts. Social media at nothing.finder.pod on Instagram, at finderpod on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. Look us up. You will find us there. Rate and review the show 5 stars. Share it with everybody you know cares about college football. And always remember, especially this weekend, especially if you're going to the game, there is nothing finer in the land.
Then a drunk, obnoxious Georgia fan with horns all the way down.